Hello there again. Welcome to the Microsoft Partner Quick Bytes. Welcome to episode number 11. Allow me to start the session by thanking Arrow, Copaco, Clear Media, Ingram Micro, SmartWorks, TD Cynics, and also thank you very much for making these sessions possible. And also thank you very much, dear subscriber. And if you're not yet subscribed, please click the link here below in the YouTube channel so you are subscribed to this, what I think, wonderful channel. And you won't miss any of the next at least 40 extra episodes we are about to share with you in the coming 9 to 10 months. So thank you for subscribing. Episode number 11, this episode is all about Copilot Chat. It's actually all about you leading your customers' AI adoption just with Copilot Chat. And remember, Copilot Chat, what is it? It's actually the set of capabilities, the set of Copilot capabilities that is absolutely fully included in a Microsoft 365 subscription. What I mean here is a Microsoft 365 Business Standard or Business Premium subscription. It includes a lot of Copilot capabilities. A lot of capabilities that does not require, I should say, anymore the full Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Of course, the full Microsoft 365 Copilot license adds quite some extra features on top of what Copilot Chat provides. But today, and especially with what has been announced, more features even have been added just in Copilot Chat. And this session is all about showing you my demos, what I typically do to convince customers about Copilot Chat. This demo set is actually my demo set that I have been creating over time. Based on many user trainings. And let me tell you the following. When I started doing user trainings about Copilot, I used to do demos like, let's start up Excel and let's start to use Copilot in order to work on the Excel worksheet. Or let's create a PowerPoint and go in PowerPoint and let's talk to PowerPoint and let's have Copilot help me create a PowerPoint slide deck. Well, these demos as part of the training is still really useful, but what I've learned over time that it's much more effective, especially in this stage where most customers still are. And where are most customers still today? Well, they know GenAI, they know ChatGPT, and they'd love to understand how Copilot Chat or the Microsoft 365 Copilot offering compares to Copilot Chat. Compares to ChatGPT. So what I always love to do is start with the foundation. And the foundation is not demonstrating how to use Copilot in Outlook, how to use Copilot even in SharePoint. The foundation is really about showing Copilot Chat, the foundational functionality that is part of every Microsoft 365 Business Standard or Business Premium, and of course E1, E1 doesn't exist anymore, E3 and E5 subscription. So let's get started. Let me show you the demos I typically do. I'm not going to do the demo here live, but what I did create a wonderful slide deck with a screenshot of every possible page, every possible screen you typically go through to do these demos. I think this is the best way to share my demos with you. I always start, of course, by explaining the Microsoft 365 Copilot app, by showing the Microsoft 365 Copilot app and explaining that it is much more than a client application to the Copilot Chat service. It's actually a collaboration application. Yes, through that collaboration application, you can chat with the Copilot service, with the GenAI Copilot service. But it is much more, and that is typically what I do in my very first demo. Of course, the most important point to make in the very first demo is what you see here, the enterprise data protection. The point that every conversation you have with Copilot is fully protected with the same enterprise data protection that is protecting you also in the context of using Outlook, of using SharePoint, of using OneDrive, of using Teams. So you actually get the same enterprise data protection, and I should also say the same IT control capabilities that you as a partner of Microsoft helping customers have to control actually the full Microsoft 365 tenant. So these controls are also to your full availability, including the enterprise data protection in the context of using Copilot Chat. And that is without any doubt the most important point you need to make when you need to explain to people what Copilot Chat is all about. And yes, if you pay for ChatGPT, for instance, you pay for the Plus plan, or you better even is to pay for the business plan, you also get this kind of protection from OpenAI. But the point here is, why would you pay for that if that protection, actually the same protection that you already have with enterprise data protection, is included in your existing Microsoft 365 business standard or business premium subscription? So that is the very first point you need to make. And then I typically do quite some demos that I'm not going to do here, but this is certainly a nice, great overview of what I typically show. I show them what AI search is, that indeed this app that you typically will use through the browser, or you will actually add it on your taskbar in Windows. Of course, you will install it on your phone, and through that app you can actually search your OneDrive, you can search your SharePoint in a very, very effective way. Chat is indeed the default app experience. That's typically what people come to expect when using Copilot Chat. It is indeed the main functionality. I typically, and that's what I will do also as part of the demos, I explain what an agent is, I show how an agent works, and I typically start to explain what an agent is after I have been explaining what the conversation history is, after I've been explaining what pages are, and after I have been explaining what notebooks are. And you will see in my build-up and my demos, once you have done these other demos, the agents even make more sense than when you would immediately start to demonstrate an agent after having explained how to use the chat capabilities. So conversations indeed, pages, notebooks. I typically also explain that you can have this create functionality, which actually gives you access to all kinds of ways to create content. One of my favorite capability in that context, for instance, is if I need to scan a document and I need to create a PDF document from a scan. Well, you used to have from Microsoft an app that was called Office Lens for that. Now Office Lens is not available officially anymore from Microsoft, but the full Office Lens functionality got integrated into the Microsoft 365 Copilot app. And that is just one of the many examples of the create functionality, the create capabilities in the Copilot app. And last but not least is the apps. That's always wonderful to show is that when you click on apps in the Copilot app, you actually get access to Loop, you get access to SharePoint, OneDrive, you get access to anything that is part of your Microsoft 365 subscription. And to me, today, this really has come to a habit for me to launch my apps actually through the 365 Copilot app. So this is typically what I do. I demonstrate these things. I of course show the 365 Copilot app. I show that it's quite intuitive to start having a conversation with Copilot, but most importantly, I show and I stress that you get the enterprise data protection that you already know or don't know, but you are typically already protected with enterprise data protection from Microsoft because of the fact that you're using Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, Outlook, and so on. That is the first thing I typically love to stress. I typically also show search, and in the context of search, you then see, for instance, that you are actually able to find your documents based on simple search strings, but you could actually also start searching by saying, I'm looking for a document I've been creating 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly anymore the name, but as part of that document, I talked about this or that. This is a completely other way of searching, and you will see that this really works in a very wonderful way. It's what you could call AI search, or what you could call AI infused search, enterprise search actually, that is actually part of the Microsoft 365 Copilot app. And what you also see here is that once you see the search results, here I'm not specifically searching for a specific document, it shows my most recent documents. You can actually open the document, of course, but you can also have a Copilot answer questions related to that specific content. What is important in this context, and in every single demo I typically do, is that I'm typically not logging on as a user here that has a full Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Most of the demos, all of the demos actually, typically use just a Microsoft 365 Business Premium subscription without any additional Copilot license on top of that. Sometimes I show as part of the demo what you get extra when you have the Microsoft 365 Copilot license, but that's the only reason why I sometimes show also a demo where I'm being logged in as a user with these capabilities. But search is certainly one of the things that you need to show that they will appreciate, because all of our customers at the end of the day, they have Copilot. No, they have Copilot Chat, of course, but they certainly have OneDrive and SharePoint, and they typically need to search for it. Another thing that I typically do as part of this demo is making sure that everybody in the training installs on their phone the Copilot app. And I'm not talking about the first one, and that is a little bit confusing, of course. If you search for Copilot in, for instance, the store of Apple, you come to see, first of all, Microsoft Copilot. And then I always need to explain, don't use that one, because that is the consumer version of Copilot, the free consumer version of Copilot. It's actually the equivalent of ChatGPT, that is free. But also if you use the consumer, the free version of Copilot, you actually are sharing information with a stranger. In a way, you don't get the enterprise data protection. It's something that is completely disconnected from your Microsoft 365 environment. So it is really the point here that you need to select the second one, the Microsoft 365 version of Copilot. And once more, this version, once you install it on your phone, does not require any additional license. So it's actually a part of your existing Microsoft 365 subscription, basically. Once you install it, here you see, in my case, it was already installed. I can update it, and you actually get to see the same user interface on the smaller screen, of course, including the enterprise data protection. It's especially in this context that I use, for instance, when I click the hamburger menu, I'm not doing it here, that I use the create capabilities, and over there I can scan a document. That's something I use quite a lot personally. Or I take a picture while attending a seminar, or a seminar actually, and I take a picture, and it nicely reformats the document as a picture, as a nice formatted picture. So that's just an example. Another thing I always explain and demonstrate is you go to the admin center of Microsoft 365 tenant, and as part of that admin center, there is a section fully dedicated to Copilot. It's actually the Copilot control system hub, in a way, as it is being called more and more. There you have all kinds of settings, and the last setting is like the pin, the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat in every single application. So it will appear then in Word very soon. It's not yet the case today, but tomorrow it might already be the case, because the deployment of that functionality is actually happening and almost done worldwide at Microsoft. But it will make sure that the Copilot chat functionality is available in Outlook, in Excel, in PowerPoint, in OneNote, of course, and I'll show you. And that is the point here is just like the fact that you make sure that it's installed on the phone, is that in any application you typically use, like Outlook, Word, and PowerPoint, and Excel, and so on, that Copilot Chat is always only one click away. And the point here is you do not need a Microsoft 365 Copilot license for that. So if you're in Word, you're able to click the Copilot icon, and you can actually start asking questions about the content of the Word document without having to leave actually Word. And that is actually what is being rolled out as we speak today. And that is very important, that you make sure that the Copilot Chat is pinned in all the Microsoft 365 apps. It's not automatically in Europe, it's not done by default. You need to do that specifically here. And I don't show it, but here also you see that you can also make sure that this same Copilot app is pinned on the Windows taskbar. And that is also something that I've activated in my case. And then here you see it. This is actually a user logged in without a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, goes to, in this case, the web version of Teams, and it doesn't matter if you open the desktop client, you will also see the same thing. And as part of that, you have in the taskbar on the left, you have a navigation towards the Copilot. And actually what you see here is completely the same as what you would see in the browser. Here you see then the same for Outlook. So this is actually Outlook, again for a user that is not having the full Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Also, she has access to Copilot as part of Outlook. And actually, as I said, Microsoft is currently rolling out a new feature in a way where you don't need anymore the full license of Microsoft 365 Copilot in order to also access, for instance, here in Word, the Copilot app in Word. And actually, another feature that they just also introduced in the same time is when you are interacting a Word document with Copilot and in the context of a Word document, you can always open the full Copilot app. So if you say, okay, great to have this interaction in a side panel as part of the Word document, and you can actually ask for summary or ask for advice on how should I maybe finalize this document? So it's actually helping you in the context of what you're doing. You can at any point in time open the full Microsoft 365 Copilot app you just saw. So that is also something that is being rolled out as we speak. So that's typically the first demo. And already there you should be able to convince the customer, because they understand how nice it is, how nicely integrated it is in what you could still call the comfort zone of many users, actually, yourself included. The other thing that many people don't know actually is that as part of Edge, and typically our customers use Edge, if they use another browser, there's certainly also an option to achieve the same thing, is that you can open any website. Here you have a website, so any website, you open any website, and on top of that, in the browser, you can actually click the Copilot button. And I didn't have to do anything special for that, but once more, also in that context, you get the full functionality. You don't need any extra license, and you get again this protection, this enterprise data protection in the context of your questions you ask about, in this case, this website. If, for instance, I go on that website to a PDF document, I click on the document, I open it, I can even ask questions like summarize this document in French in 5 bullets. Can you do this with ChatGPT 2? Of course you can do this with ChatGPT 2. And in this case, there is probably no danger at all in doing it even in the free version of ChatGPT. But then again, it could be. It could be that you start to ask questions that might be sensitive. Or this document might be a document that is your document, your IP that you did upload to ChatGPT. In that context, clearly, it doesn't make sense to use, at least not the free version of ChatGPT. You need a version where you have this extra protection. But why would you pay for that if you have already the Copilot Chat? And that is the point you want to make. So this is typically something that people appreciate, they didn't know it, and it is certainly something that is useful. Of course, and that's where people really typically get quite excited. I think many of us have had difficulties fully understand why you have these 4 options there. I will be explaining each of these 4 options, starting with the first 3. So here I'm again in the context of the Copilot chat application, yeah, and I'm asking to summarize this document. Now, this document, I need to specify what document. Now you have 3 options, and you can click on the plus button, and then the second option is upload an image and file. The idea is there that you upload a local file, not a file that is in OneDrive or SharePoint, but a local file. It could be on an USB stick, it could be on your desktop, whatever. Here I'm taking some demo document about Microsoft Vision for AI in the enterprise, and I'm actually uploading the document to the chat service. Now, could you do that? Of course, with ChatGPT, of course you could do that, but this is actually a great example of where people realize, well, maybe I do not want to do that for every single document. I'm not going to give it away actually to an external service or to a public service. And giving them the right to do what they want with that document. That's typically not what you want, or at least if you are the business owner or responsible for a team of people, you typically do not want your team, your employees, to do that through a public AI service. And I'm not just talking about ChatGPT. The danger is that they might also start to use other AI services, and that they start to share documents with multiple AI services, each with their own policies regarding how documents and information is being treated. And that is actually the point. Use actually the Copilot chat functionality for that, and you'll get indeed these nice answers. And that is typically what I show. Upload an image. You don't need to be, the files don't need to be in OneDrive or SharePoint. The other option is, here I'm asking to create a SWOT analysis based on another document. In this case, I click the plus sign, and I click on Add Work Content. If you click on Add Work Content, once more, I don't have any license here. I can start typing like ADA. It finds every single document in my OneDrive and my SharePoint that starts with ADA. In this case, the Adatum 4-year financial results document. So this is actually the option you click when you want to share or reference. It's not uploading because it's already in the cloud. You want to reference an existing OneDrive or shared document for which you know the name, and you get actually a nice answer. So that is what you see here. Now, the other thing that I then typically do, and in this case what I will do is you get an answer, and what you always get, that's quite nice, it always comes with follow-up suggestions. Suggested follow-up questions. In this case, there's a follow-up question, add financial ratios for this analysis, and you get an answer. The reason why I'm doing this, because later in the demo, I will be using this second response from Copilot as part of a page that I will be creating. I'll come back to that. So, voila. Now there's another example. Here you have an example of, I'm the HR manager at Graphics Design Institute. We have recently started the recruitment for a new senior animation designer. Please review the attached document, because I need you to create a job description. So in this case, I click Attach Cloud Files. Now what is the difference between Attach Cloud Files and Add Work Content? Sometimes you do not know exactly what the name of the document is, so you cannot just type and search, but you know the location where the document is. If you're still really organized in like file folders on your SharePoint and OneDrive, this is probably what you want. Or sometimes you know exactly the name of the document, but you have multiple versions of that document with the same name of multiple locations, and then you typically want to navigate specifically for that document. So I select that document, and once more, you do not need any subscription for that, and you get an answer. And then you could even go further. I have 3 candidates for this job, and I've received their resumes. Can you help me to decide who is actually for that role? So here again, I do attach cloud files. I know where the resumes are. I click them, and I actually get an answer. Would you be able to do that with ChatGPT? Of course, but this I think is an even better example of something you will not do with the free ChatGPT version or any other free tool. Also including not the tool from Microsoft, you would never use the consumer version of Copilot for doing that. You will want to go for an AI tool, a Gen AI tool that provides you the enterprise data protection that you already have, and that is actually what you have with Copilot Chat. So these three demos typically are quite convincing. Here you see you get some advice on who to take. You get follow-up questions like create a formal evaluation matrix. It can give you quite some interesting help in doing that. You can even ask the system to create some specific interview questions for Nestor. You say, okay, let's go for, well, here I asked for Nestor, but I should, for instance, probably better ask for Alex and get actually a good interview question. Again, this is not the kind of conversation you will want your employees, you will want to have your team members have with the free consumer tool. You will want to have some guarantees on how your information is being used, and even ask for a formatted printable interview sheet. You can get quite a lot of things. Then here what I'm doing, I'm still in the context of adding content to conversation, but this time I'm going to show you what you get extra if you pay for the subscription. So here I'm logged in as Eve, and here you see on top like there is a switch work web. Now this switch will actually disappear in a few weeks. They will actually move the work web functionality next to the plus sign, and you will be able to specify as part of the conversation where you want search results or an answer actually based on web content, SharePoint, and you will be able to more granularly specify what context should be taken into account by Copilot. So just know that. But anyway, once you are paying, like I'm paying for the Copilot functionality, the full functionality, you can ask a question like this. What were again the conclusions from my meeting at Zivco last Friday? Now, when I ask a question like that, the system knows what meetings I had, and it will check for the name, Zivco. Did I have a meeting with Zivco last Friday? And that requires clearly the full license of Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now what is nice, I get an answer, and I might, in this case, and do this on purpose, realize all of a sudden, whoa, I was wrong, sorry, I say, I mean another meeting. And here what you see, I say, I mean this meeting, and when you start to use the /, you start to type, in this case, Fen, what you actually see is a pop-up showing you actually all the meetings that somehow have Fenzi, in this case, in the name of the meeting. Now the point is that you also see much more. You can actually say, help me creating a PowerPoint based on what was concluded in that meeting. Also check this chat, and whatever email conversation I had with these people internally, and take, for instance, this Word document into consideration. You can actually specify SharePoint sites, OneDrive files, even Power BI reports, and you can actually very specifically create the context when asking something to Copilot, and that is actually a paying feature that you don't have in the other license. So in this case, I specify just one meeting and I get actually the answer. If you show this, especially in the context of meeting, that typically convinces managers in the organization that they actually need the full license, because after a meeting, they'd love to ask questions or create PowerPoints or email messages based on what was said during a meeting. And that is really convincing. Here I'm just asking them, and there you get the answer. Now, switching back to a user that is not having the full license, there is the topic of conversations. Now, conversations, it's an easy topic. So as part of the, here you see, as part of the menu, you can actually click conversations. You can click all conversations, and you can click any of the conversations in your history. So this is typically what you will want to use, and this is quite useful. And I'll explain that of course you will want to find back a conversation you had in the past. You might even continue an existing conversation based on what was already discussed in the last conversation. And this is something that people take for granted because they know it from email, from Teams and so on. But it is a great introduction to the next topic. It's a great introduction to the concept of pages. Because what is a page? A page is typically a page like what you have in OneNote. You have a OneNote page. And what you typically do in a OneNote page is collecting information in the context of something you're preparing, for instance. Well, here we are not talking about OneNote pages, but as you will see, it nicely integrates with OneNote. More on that later. But here we are talking about Copilot pages. To make an example, I go back to my conversation history. I take one of my my conversations I had, and this was one of them about some company for which I asked to have a SWOT analysis. And here under the response, I can click edit in pages. If you do so, what happens? It actually creates a page, a Copilot page, including just that single answer that you really typically will want to reuse. And once more, you don't need a license for that. It's standard functionality. Now, what is nice about that is once you have such a page, this page is of course now, and what I do here, I go back to again to the conversation I had, and remember that I did ask a second question like add financial ratios, and also that answer, I can now add to the page. Now what I'm doing here is add to a recent page, because I do not want the system to create yet another new page, a new Copilot page, just for that fragment. No, I'm going to say add to a recent page now, and now I have to specify the page we just created, and I'm actually taking the two answers from Copilot that in this case came from the same conversation, but typically you might have multiple conversations with Copilot, and at any point in time you can say, wow, this is an interesting answer. I will now copy that answer to that Copilot page that I already have, and that's what is being demonstrated here. Now the great value about all that, of course, is that you will want to have an overview of your pages. You will want to navigate your page. You will want to filter your pages, also the pages that have been shared with you, because that is the next topic. And you will want to put pages in notebooks, which will be another topic in a moment. But before we do that, we can share a page. So take this page we just created with these two answers. I can click on page link, and I'm doing this as a user Nele, and this user Nele doesn't have any license. She clicks page link, she gets this dialog that you recognize, where you can specify who can then use that link and whether they can edit the page. In this case they can, and then I copy that link, in this case to myself, a user Eve. And what I'm showing you here on top is that I see that Nele is actually also at this very moment editing the same document, and I can add content, and when Nele checks the document, she sees that I'm also in the same document, and in real time we are co-authoring the document. So this is a great feature that you might recognize as a loop feature, because the technology being used behind the scenes is loop. It's actually quite nice. And again, could you do such a thing with ChatGPT? Yeah, they have this kind of stuff, but why on earth would you start using that? Because once you start using that, you create actually yet another place in the cloud, another silo for which you will require IT controls, security. You will want to govern the usage of that, while you have it here integrated as the Copilot chat functionality. That's the whole point. And to make it even better, then let's introduce the topic notebooks. No, Pages is interesting. It's a better way of reusing information than going to your conversation history. But notebooks is then the next level. What you typically can do with a notebook, you create a notebook. So for instance, here I've created the notebook for the Quick Bytes episode number 8. And as part of that notebook, I've been adding all kinds of references, all kinds of files, URLs, websites, all kinds of things that are used in preparation to in this case, the Quick Bytes number 8. Now, by doing so, I can also add pages, specific pages, so I create some first page to this notebook, and you already get it, you actually are collecting and creating a context that typically a context can be related to a project, or in my case, a recording I need to do, I need to prepare. But this context could be something that is long running, long living, like 1 year, 2 years. And the good thing is that you typically add pages, you add content, you add whatever you can think of. And here I'm adding a page. And the idea is that you then actually can start have conversations with Copilot, multiple conversations, and you actually link these conversations always with the same notebook. And what is so great about that is that whenever you have a conversation with Copilot in the context of a notebook, it always takes into account whatever page you have already added in the past, whatever reference that you have added, like a PowerPoint, a Word, PDF, whatever, Teams meeting, whatever you have brought into the notebook context will always be taken into account when answering your question. So also your questions will be quite short in the chat conversations because it knows what the context is. It typically knows why you're asking that. It typically knows what your typical expectations are in that specific notebook context, and it knows typically what your goal is because they are really short about what you're asking. Now, to show you, let's go back to, in this case, an existing Copilot page. And what you have there, I didn't show it, is this button on top where you can say, well, this Copilot page, which was created completely out of the context of a notebook, you can at any point in time add an existing Copilot page to a notebook. Here I click it, I specify the notebook, and all of a sudden this page is added to my notebook. And I go to the notebook and I see the page got added. And actually this page, of course, you could have shared it with other users, and you're actually collaborating in your notebook with other users, meaning if they contribute new insights, new information in one of the pages, and you start asking questions as part of the notebook to Copilot, it always takes into account also the extra input from others. So you see, again, it is a collaboration platform. If you talk about the Copilot app, we talk about an app that is much more than just an AI tool. It's actually a collaboration platform that is really helpful. Now, what I like a lot is this. If you go to OneNote, and I didn't have to do anything for that. This is just by design. If you go to your notebook, okay, I should say one thing. Notebooks require a license, so that's a full license thing. But once you have a full license of Microsoft 365 Copilot, you actually see also your notebooks, of course, nicely integrated with all its richness in OneNote. That's certainly, again, something where you will charm a lot of end users who are a big fan of OneNote. You get the point. You get to feel that it's much more than a very secure enterprise data protected way of using Gen AI. It's actually something that you are a customer already typically paying for, because you pay for the Microsoft 365 business subscription, and as part of that you get much more than what you have with just an AI tool. Now, the other topic in that context is, of course, scheduling and saving the prompt itself, not the content, but the prompt itself. And one of the things that people typically are surprised is this demo. I go back to one of my conversations, And in this case, I did prepare a conversation where I asked Copilot, like, I want to be sure to get important things done before the weekend. So this is typically a question that you would ask on days like today. It's Thursday today. And you say, well, tomorrow is Friday and then there is the weekend. And I want to be sure that I focus tomorrow, Friday, on those things that I need to have done before the weekend. So you ask here, Copilot, like, check my emails, my team messages, check actually everything that I've had in conversation the last 2 weeks, and tell me what I actually need to do by tomorrow. Now this is a great example of what you could call a power prompt. It's very lengthy also, you're very specific of what you are expecting and what the context is and so on, and what the sources of the information the system should take into account. And that is the typical example of a prompt. If you hover over it, you get to see this one, where you would want to use the schedule this prompt. And then you get this dialog. And you can actually say to Copilot, well, from now on, this prompt should be automatically used without any initiative from my side, apart from what I'm doing here, every Thursday at 9:30 in the morning. And automatically you'll get from Copilot the answer in the morning, helping you, or in this case, on Thursday. And that is the whole point. This is actually already a nice example of what you would call an agent, where the agent starts to do very specific personal things on a schedule in this case, and not in a typically question-answer way of working. This is something that people ask. And then the other thing is you can actually just decide, I want to save this prompt, not schedule it, save it because I want to reuse it later on demand. So I save the prompt. You can still change the prompt. You give it a name, my weekly power prompt, I call it. And what is so nice about it, I can now go to the prompt gallery and reuse it. Now have a look. It's a little bit hidden. You go to the chat window, you click on see more, see more suggestions, and then on below the more suggestions, you see the prompt gallery. You click on the prompt gallery. There you see the suggested prompts. You can even filter on what is the goal of what you're trying to do, what is your job role, and maybe what agent that has been created should actually be involved here. And you can find back all kinds of suggested prompts. Now what I want to show is this one. I click to your prompts and there you have it. You see my weekly power prompt I just saved. Now what is so wonderful about that is that you can also share the prompt to a team. If you do so, you get to see this. You get to select all your a team from Teams. So here you see Microsoft Teams integration. So here I say the prompt I just saved, I'm going to share with the members of the A team in Teams. When I do so, and I go to the team prompts and I select here A team, or any of my members of colleagues that is in that team would be able to find back my team prompt, and they might even share or change the prompt, make it better, and you start to exchange power prompts and even get them better, very specific to what you are trying to achieve in that team. So this is again a nice example showing that the Copilot chat app, which is free, it's part of what you're already paying with business plan of Microsoft 365, and it's much more than a secure tool. It's actually a collaboration app. That's the whole point you want to make. Once you're at that stage, it's a very good point to start introducing agents, because the idea of an agent is that you can ask really very specific questions that typically, if you would want to do it with the means that we just demonstrated, always end up in very long prompts. You can share them, you can save them, all nice, but at some point in time you simply want to talk to an agent like, create me, for instance, an offer for that customer. And that's the only thing you say. Create me an offer for that customer for that product. Now, if you would ask that to ChatGPT or Copilot, you would get a wonderful answer, but it would be a wonderful, very generic answer. What you typically want is an agent, for instance, the offer agent, that gives you an answer specific to your company based on existing offers and whatever special needs you have, you would typically specify in an instruction, in a prompt. But you do not want to create these lengthy prompts over and over again, so you just want to talk to an agent. The nice thing about agents, once more, is you do not need a full license for that. You can actually start using agents, using the default agents from the agent store, but most importantly, you could even create an agent without having to pay for an extra subscription. Here you see it, how it works. I start to have a conversation with Copilot, who says, I'm here to help you build an agent. You can start describing what you want the agent to do. You could even start from a template. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to specify here below that I want an agent designed to help users resolve issues with their ICT resources, such as PCs, printers, phones, and even the coffee machines for providing troubleshooting advice. So that's the only thing I say, and automatically it even creates, I didn't have to do that myself, suggested questions that people get to see immediately, and it even then asks me and suggests a name for that agent. I say no, the agent should be called the Frego Basic ICT and Coffee Support Agent, voila, and that's it. That's actually the only thing I need to do. I'm going to click on Configure now. On top, I click on Configure now. There I can still change the name, I can change the logo, and I see the instructions that have been created by Copilot based on my short conversation. Now what I will do, I go in this instructions and I add actually 2 extra instructions. I say always start your answer with saying how happy you are to help, whatever. And most importantly, I say answer in the style of George Clooney, making a small joke. So this is an extra thing I specify. And the other thing I do, I scroll down and I specify the URL of a SharePoint documents library, a specific folder where I have, in this case, Word documents, could also be PDF documents, doesn't matter, specific to coffee machines. It could be anything. Take whatever you have in the company, specify the URL, and you see it here, the URL is nicely included now, and it's done, I click the create on top here, I create the agent, I use it, and I start asking, I'm having trouble using the espresso machine, can you help? And what do you see? First of all, it starts by saying how happy it is, and it starts by being funny, like saying, because no one should face a coffee crisis alone. This is just cruel. I think this is the style of George Clooney. And it's actually giving me an answer based on one of the SharePoint documents that I shared with the agent. So again, this is an example of something you will typically appreciate as a company, as an employee, as an end user, and it does not require a license of Microsoft 365. It does, however, require in the backend an Azure subscription that is then shared by one or more agents and one or more users, because you have the full governance of who can use which agents and which agents are linked to which Azure subscription. And at the level of this Azure subscription, you of course specify a budget like 100, 200 euros per month, for instance, and then you're also very sure that none of your agents will ever result in an unexpected invoice from Microsoft. But clearly it's a pay-as-you-go system where you have much more control, full control actually over what people will be able to use and at what cost actually. And this brings me to the last demo. I said I would discuss all the options you have when sharing content. I go back to an existing conversation. Remember the conversation about the SWOT analysis. And remember, in this case, I could again share documents and whatever you want, but I could also bring into the context later an agent. And I could bring in the context, for instance, the agents we just created. Doesn't really make sense, of course. And I ask a question like, would an espresso help here? Which is, of course, quite a strange question in that context. But what is nice, it answers actually the question in a very funny way, in the George Clooney funny way. And it's actually giving, an answer that actually absolutely makes sense in the context of my SWOT analysis. So the idea is that if you are in a conversation with a long-running conversation that is in your history, you can at any point say, okay, let's now bring into context the agent and have that agent answer one specific question and then drop again the agent from the conversation. So it's just another example of how you could use that. And showing all these demos makes typical users understand why Copilot Chat is so powerful. And I didn't show any Excel or Outlook or PowerPoint demo, which is great. I typically do in the next training, but doing this training live typically takes 2 hours or even 3 hours. And at the end of the day, the conclusion of the users is always, okay, we need to adopt this. Everybody needs to use that. And some of the users will probably want to use the full license, but not all users need the full license. That is typically what the conclusion is. So the conclusion is really like, provide broad access and have full control over how budget is being used for that. And then start to create agents. Actually bring agent in the context of the business process. You will probably want to redesign the business process, and then you're actually realizing the value of AI. And the point here is that you can actually do that even without buying any single Microsoft 365 Copilot license. You can actually do all that from a partner perspective without having to sell any extra license. And is my message here that you do not have to sell any extra? My point here is, don't bother too much about that. For sure, users will want to buy the extra license. That will actually happen automatically. However, the broad access and making users and customers aware of the value of Copilot Chat will not happen automatically. They will think that they already have ChatGPT, they like ChatGPT, and they don't see the value of what is already included in something they are already paying. Making sure that you work on this broad access, have control over everything they do with it, but because that is the whole point. You have the IT controls, you have the security, you're actually building a foundation for a return of investment for the customer in a very self-controlled way, and you're actually helping yourself as a partner to be successful. Voila, this was it. I'm planning to do another episode about the same topic, but then about the new integrations in Word and Excel that is also being rolled out as we speak. And again, I'm talking about the Copilot Chat functionality that is being rolled out as part of Word and Excel without having to buy a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. And in that next session, I will also show some new features and make sure that you understand once more what the difference is if I still want to go to the next version. Voila, thank you very much. Please subscribe here below. And let's see each other probably next week for the next episode, episode 12. Episode 12 might be also about the same topic, but chances are also that I will want to do a session about Azure Arc, just to do something different. We'll see. Thank you very much and see you next week. Bye bye.